On August 28, 1984, an American salesman named Mike Rose sold the unthinkable idea of doing almost 13,000 kilometers in 10 days in the USA on the motorcycles of that era. He named this show after his favorite show, the Ironman Triathlon. The Ironbird term was coined, and the rest is history. Not only the testosterone bathing, all things large loving Americans bought this insane idea to prove whatever they had to prove, but this idea got insanely popular globally, as well as amongst the motorcyclists who wanted to be a notch above the rest of the mortal ones on two wheels, or at least I would like to think so, including myself. Hi, my name is Sunny, also known as the Motographer. I'm here to tell you about my 3 successful Ironbird attempts. Please have a seat while you watch this. I mean, essentially, this is what Ironbird is all about. Having a seat for at least 1609 kilometers straight, or 1,000 miles. This particular sub-ride format is also known as the Saddle Sore 1000. 1000 being miles because this is an American thing. It is also known as the Saddle Sore 1600K outside of the USA. And there are many other formats if you have a bigger appetite for munching miles. The Burn Burner 1600, which pushes you to do 1600 miles or 2600 kilometers in less than 36 hours. And so on. For example, Saddle Sore 18,000K in less than 12 days. That's 1,500 kilometers every day for 12 days straight. And then there's a ride called the Longest Month that asks you to do 30,000 miles or 48,500 kilometers in just one calendar month. Just don't choose February for this one. Let me get a bit philosophical here. Why would you want to do such a thing? Is getting certified by the Ironbird Association necessary? I mean, who are they to certify us? Well, when you get enough people in the same place clamoring for the same thing, it just kind of makes it more authentic, and you just get the enough sample size to test your mettle against. Not too common, not too niche. Or maybe you're having a midlife crisis. Or maybe you are that hot-blooded young guy who wants to rise above all his friends. Or maybe you are that lonely guy who wants to go in searching for the meaning of life. Or maybe you just want to test your mental and physical fitness, whatever it is. And that's what the Ironbird Association or the IBA does. They offer you ride formats along with certain rules that you have to follow. You do the ride, you submit the papers, and a team of volunteers go through your entry. And if all is well, they will send you an image of a certificate and add your name to a web page amongst all the successful ride finishes from around the world. Just a sincere request to the IABA Association. Please make a proper website. Come on, it's 2024 now. Now that you have a certificate, and hopefully for the IBA, you have paid a few dollars for a kit that includes some things like a pin badge to show off and a printed certificate, you may want to congratulate yourself. Come on, give a pat on your back. You're one of the few thousands on a planet of 8 billion people as of 2024 to be IBA certified. Just for comparison, when the first Ironbird happened in 1984, the world's population was 4 billion. Let's talk about my Ironbird attempts before I can give you some tips. So I have had 3 attempts and all 3 have been thankfully successful without any incidents. 2 kinds of situations for me. One I am specially preparing for an Ironbird like I did on 2 occasions out of the 3. And another just kind of happens in the middle of a much longer ride. The first Ironbird that I attempted was part of a 20,000 kilometers road trip around Australia on the world's fastest production road legal motorcycle, the Kawasaki Ninja H2, in September 2017. The second Ironbird was in July 2022 with the Kawasaki Z125 in Germany. Talking about poles apart.
This is like a MotoGP race, Moto3.
The third Ironbird was in October 2022, again in Germany, but with the BMW M1000RR. It was comeback time, baby. The one with the Z125 was one of the most difficult rides of my life, with me just completing it in almost 23 hours on the saddle. My fastest Ironbird was with the Ninja H2, in which I almost did 1750 kilometers in around 16 hours. But the question is, should you do the Ironbird? Like I said, it is up to you, whatever the reason may be. Your number one priority over everything else has to be returning home safely and stopping the moment you feel anything is wrong with you or your motorcycle. That's it. You can always retry rather than risk your life, limb, or an expensive accident. The key is to preparing for it. But other than that, go for it and have fun. But here's my list of how you can plan based on my own experiences. You should at least have done a few rides of more than 700 kilometers in a day in standard conditions not too many years ago. And you should be regularly doing shorter rides of at least 200 kilometers in a day on motorcycles every other month. Trust me, this will really help because your body and mind will be better tuned for those 1600 kilometers that you intend to ride. Inspect your bike. Try and get your bike serviced once before you leave and look for smaller things that you usually want, like coolant, oil, brake fluid, brake pads, chain play, and rust, and especially tires. Also, depending on your route, try and have an aux light installed on your bike depending on what part of the world you intend to ride in. I for sure needed them in the Australian outback on my Ninja H2, but I didn't have those at the time. I cannot stress enough how important the well-being of your bike is. It is here that I want to thank my longtime sponsors and supporters, Castrol Power One. I'd used the same oil in my first iron butt attempt with the Ninja H2, and I also use the latest range of Castrol Power One Ultimate oils in pretty much all my bikes, including my Rocket 3, Ninja ZX-10R, Hayabusa, and the Apache RR310. What the oil does reads similar to what water does to the human body. The 5-in-1 full synthetic formula delivers excellent on-demand acceleration every time you switch the throttle, excellent protection for the engine as it revs through the 1600 kilometers, smooth riding, keeps the engine cool, and this one is very important if you are in hotter climates. And last but not the least, enduring performance, which means that the innards of your engine are well protected. Route and weather are also very important. This might be the single most important thing that you decide. Use the roads with maximum speed limit that you can possibly have access to for the majority of the ride, like highways. Try and do this in summer where the daylight is maximum. Hot weather is better than cold weather. Definitely try to avoid rain as much as you can. Plot the route on Google Maps with petrol pumps that are open the time you intend to start and end the ride. Well, you will need printed receipts in front of your odometer that clearly shows the time along with your odometer reading. You can pre-call fuel pumps to know if they will be open at a particular time. You can also call hotels which have cafes that might be open at odd hours.
Having my dinner here, empty, completely empty. Thank God this was open.
Plan these fuel stops based on your mileage of your motorcycle. Always plan the stop on the map at least 20% lesser than your projected fuel mileage. Remember that on roads like German Autobahn, your mileage will be much lesser than on roads with speed limit of around 120 kilometers an hour. I figured this one out with the M1000RR that I had to refuel every 150 kilometers or so because I was doing an average speed of around 200 kilometers an hour many times.
Forgotten the count of how many times I have filled in fuel. So the faster you go, the more you have to fill in. So average I'm getting 130, 140 kilometers.
You can make this route a circuit or just keep on going in one direction without repeating any one of the waypoints. If there is a shortest point on Google Maps between you and 2 fuel pumps that you intend to stop, then the IBR team is going to consider that route. Unless there's another fuel pump that is a waypoint in between that proves that you took a longer route. A lot of people fail because of this. Also, try to ride facing away from the sun as much as possible, which means in the morning, don't ride towards east, and in the evening, don't ride towards west. So many motorcycles have a speedo compensation or an error built in so that when your tire tread weighs down, changing the diameter of the wheel, the speedometer doesn't show lesser speed than you are actually traveling. This is a legal requirement in most countries, and one side effect of this is that it might save you from some tickets. This varies between manufacturers, but try and think of this as being an 8% compensation. So even if your odometer shows 1600 kilometers, it may actually be almost 10% less. But if you just follow the waypoints that you have created on Google Maps, then you should easily land up doing around 1700 kilometers by the time you end on your odometer, because the maps will be correct. If you're riding for a certificate, then you have to go by the rules. Read up the rules on their website. Basically, you have to tell a human who's vetting your ride log that you indeed covered at least 1000 miles in less than 24 hours. Start and end witness is preferred, with a foolproof gas station receipt along with your odometer, along with a ride log that you can complete in chronological order once you get back based on your fuel receipts. To be even safer, get a GPS device that can log the entire journey and output a GPX file. I've never had the need for this because I had my proper fuel receipts. It's just that you have to have a documentation every 350 miles or less. A lot of people have been talking about a tool called Spotwalla, so check that out as well. Try and carry both cash and cards, so that just in case the card machine is not working, you can still get a receipt. Now let's talk about the physiology and the psychology of it. The best time to start the ride is very early in the morning. That gives you maximum daylight hours. At least 6 hours of sleep is definitely recommended before you start the ride. No excuses. Doesn't matter how much you think of yourself, you're still from planet Earth and it takes just one wink of sleep for everything to end. The first 300 or 400 kilometers you will feel like a superhero. no problems at all. Then you will start calculating things in your head. By the time you reach 800 kilometers, you will think you have done a lot, but then you realize it is just only half of it. For me, it is always the last 500 odd kilometers that get the most difficult. This is when usually the sunset happens and you start getting affected by the dirty visor, the insects, and even sometimes the glares of faraway vehicles. The mind gets tired before the body tries to fight a sleep whole day. If you catch a negative thought and build on it, then it can drain you like no one's business. So be very wary of people and things that can affect you negatively. Stay away from them for a day. Some people's body will start to pain. Medicines like ibuprofen will definitely help and make you feel much better. The key is not to overthink about the ride and also not to take it too lightly either. I would suggest knocking off 100 kilometers at a time mentally and just remind that you have to do it 16 times only. And when you reach the 1600 kilometers on the trip meter or your odometer that you have to set to 0 at the start, just do another 100 to account for the speedo error. I have to remind you again that all this will be done based strictly on the route planning with gas stops that you have pre-planned. Now, gearing up is also very important. Depending on the weather, you may need to gear up. My Australia Iron Butt was done in the central region in summers where it was super hot. So only my leathers that were also perforated were fine. However, I was wearing my rain gear to act as a shield from cold in the morning and evening on the Autobahn in Germany, since I did that in October. Even if there is a chance that you will feel hot, just open the zip of the rain gear a bit. Wearing it or taking it off during the ride will eat into a lot of time. Plus, it will protect you from the rain anyways. A reminder I got on my Iron Butt on the mighty Z125, where the last 300 kilometers were done in rain. Your helmet should have a pin lock to prevent fogging up, and try to clean the helmet once with a hydrophobic polish. Though I've never tried one. But for sure, a dirty visor can be lethal, especially before dawn and dusk. It doesn't matter what bike you will ride. If you're not listening to music or talking to people over Bluetooth, use an earplug. It can save you from going deaf in the long run. Have a tank bag which can be taken off easily for refueling. The bag can have everything you need, including your cash, cards, power banks, and even food. Now let's talk about how to keep yourself energized and alert. You need to stay alive. That is the only thing that matters. Aside from sleep, try and have oatmeal in the morning. That will provide you with both kind of fibers. Soluble for the prolonged energy and insoluble that will keep you full. A shot of coffee might help for some people. Proper hydration is necessary and you can relieve yourself at gas station breaks. But I cannot stress the importance of having yourself hydrated. Well, after all, 60% of your body is water. Energy drinks can also have a placebo effect in keeping you awake, but they can also leave you dehydrated. Throughout the ride, keep having bananas. Chia seeds are also a great source of prolonged energy and will leave you feeling content and full. They also have omega-3 that helps fight stress and is anti-inflammatory. Along with that, you can also have nuts and seeds that will help you fight hunger and fatigue without making you feeling sleepy. Raw and unsalted seeds like walnuts, sunflower seeds, cashews, Brazil nuts, and pumpkin seeds are to be placed in a white cap plastic bottle so that you can have it as an afternoon snack. Besides this, I like to have a bar of chocolate and cold coffee sometimes at gas stations. Alone or with someone? That's a very important question. Motorcycling is predominantly solo activity. It doesn't matter even if you're riding with 100,000 riders, you still are alone inside that helmet. On an Iron Butt, your sole aim is to cover distance in the minimum amount of time. For me, having another rider means that they should also match you in the bike capacity, mileage, and riding styles and capability. Else it can work against your objective. What motorcycle? Well, probably you will go with the bike that you own. That's what most people will do and should do. However, since I'm a journalist as well, I keep getting access to meter motorcycles around the world. So for me, I need to adapt to a motorcycle like a duckling takes to water. When I did the Iron Butt with the Ninja H2, I was already 10,000 kilometers into my Australia ride. I knew the bike like the back of my hand and it was relatively easy because it was my bike. But with the M1000RR and the Z125, I had only a few kilometers to get to know the bike before I had to do the Iron Butt. How much does actually knowing your bike matter? I will give an example. I had a choice between a K1600 GTL and an M1000RR that I was supposed to pick up from the BMW headquarters in Munich. I took a K1600 GTL out for a short ride to the mountains. The moment I hit the Autobahn, I knew this bike won't cut the way I wanted to do. It was extremely comfortable, but with a limiting speed of around 200 kilometers an hour, which meant a cruising speed of maybe around 170, it was just too less because also around that speed, there was a lot of buffeting. And I didn't see myself taking advantage of the Autobahn. A big windscreen doesn't mean better streamlining. Plus, I felt it would be much less involved than the M1000RR, and that would probably make me fall asleep. Plus, the M1000RR is just cool and fast. And I was right on all accounts in retrospect. Of course, the M1000RR is a lot more extreme with respect to posture, but when you are on the Autobahn all the time, you need to crouch down and do the max speeds you can. On the other hand, if you're planning to do it on a bike like the Z125 that has a top speed of around 100 kilometers an hour, be ready to slog it out until the very end of the 24 hours. And that happened because I was on the Autobahn. I'm not sure how that will pan out on other roads where you have to accelerate and deaccelerate a lot of times because that thing is slow. I did that one for a German magazine just before the Intermot show in 2022. Well, your choice of the motorcycle combined the route will also decide on how many times you have to stop for fueling because that costs time and effort. So should you do an iron butt or not? Well, it's your life, your time, but there are some circumstances I feel that you should not do it and when you can literally get yourself killed. For one, I see a lot of people attempting the iron butt in India where you may have some awesome roads coming up every other day, but there is no way you can be sure of what will happen in the next few kilometers, whether someone will come cross the highway or come in the wrong side of the road. As much as it hurts for me to say this about my own country, but is a sad reality. And when you are doing an iron butt, you tend to get less cautious about these things as you progress into the ride. Bottom line is, you need to place your life in your own hands and not leave it to luck. So no matter how good your bike is or how young you are or how strong you are, do not attempt the iron butt in a place where the roads are unpredictable and legal speed limits are low. I want to end this video by telling you about my 3 iron butt experiences so far. The first one was with the Ninja H2. I started from Alice Springs and continued to Tennant Creek, Newcastle Waters and Matranka before ending in the city of Darwin. The whole of this area has a speed limit of around 130 kilometers an hour, which means you can do around 140 kilometers sort of legally and even much higher speeds because it is one of the most sparsely populated regions in the world. The biggest threat here was the nothingness that threatened me to sleep many times. But saddling on the bike was one great way to get my attention back. Shouting inside the helmet, accelerating like mad to hear the supercharger whistle was one. This area is also extremely dangerous at dusk because many animals and marsupials, big and small, can threaten to kill you as they cross the road. There are real horror stories about them. The second iron butt was with a bike at the other end of the spectrum in 2022, 5 years after I rode the H2. It was with the Kawasaki Z125 along with 4 other riders on similar 125cc motorcycles. This was for the awareness about 125cc's in Germany. By far, this was one of my toughest rides ever. We chose a Sunday to do this since big trucks are not allowed on the Autobahn on this day. Overtaking was almost non-existent as everyone else on the Autobahn was faster than us. It was a real pain to be on such a road and we only be able to hit 100 kilometers an hour. The last 300 kilometers were in extreme rain, cold, and it was dangerous because of the water spray that I got from much faster cars. I got separated from the rest of the group just 300 kilometers into the ride, so practically I did it alone. If I ever need to get awarded for a ride, I want for this one. I started this one in Essen, Germany and went to Nürburgring, Dresden, Hanover and came back to Essen for a total of 1640 kilometers in almost 24 hours. So my third iron butt was in October 2022 with the M1000RR. I had the most fun on this one and this was also perhaps the easiest out of all 3. Plenty of fuel pumps, many no speed limit sections. I really enjoyed this one. I would have finished this much faster if I hadn't stopped for fuel 12 times. I also felt that this attempt was the safest too, since I had a bike that was equipped with the best brakes for high speeds. Best aerodynamics, no luggage, unlike the Ninja H2, because in that one I was already on a road trip. If you have watched all the way till the end, I'm pretty sure you're contemplating iron butt seriously. But whether it is for the certificate or not, a lot of things that I've said are still applicable to any long distance endurance ride. I wish you all the best and remember to only get on the saddle with the intent of coming back home safely and have fun. These are the only 2 things that should matter. Ride safe, ride hard. Take care.